yes, it is worth supporting. It has cut our uninsured rate in half. But it is not perfect. No big law ever is. And it's my job as a member of Congress to make sure things work well. And that's why I have voted for and will continue to vote for and seek out ways that it can be improved. And I did that around grandfather plans. I did that around a number of specific initiatives. And it's not my job to be a cheerleader for a political party or the president or any law, but to make sure that things work and that they work here and they work well in Connecticut. Connecticut's been a leader in the country. Again, not perfect, but things are going pretty well, and we're seeing impact of it. And I'll tell you, we're seeing impact of it in the people who now can get affordable health insurance because they had a pre-existing condition. And that was true for Susie Clayton in Canaan, Connecticut. She's saving $1,500 a month because she's a 2-time breast cancer survivor. It was virtually out of reach for her. Everyone in the audience who's got a child between 18 and 26 is benefiting because your kids are covered by health insurance now. So it's not perfect. It shouldn't be repealed, though. Repeal is the wrong answer. Fix it. That's about most things. Fix it, and that's what I'm working to do.
Okay, Mr. Greenberg. Your feelings?
Well, I call for repeal and replace. I don't call for repeal without replace. I call for repeal and replace. Look, I've said that 2,600 pages and 20,000 pages of statutes and code that go with it are way too long. I've said that any book which is greater and longer than the Holy Bible or Ayn Rand's Fountainhead is too big for the federal government and is fraught with issues and disasters. And I think Obamacare has those issues and disasters. Now, as a practical matter, we're not going to repeal it for 2 years. Doesn't matter. Whether we take the Senate, we have the House, we're not going to repeal it. So we have to do some things to try to fix it, I guess, in the next 2 years. You know, we have to have catastrophic insurance sold across state lines. Right now, the states dictate which insurance products are sold. You can get a catastrophic policy in Connecticut. You can't get it in New York. Obamacare has created tiers of subsidies, you might say, where the income levels are at certain tiers, and your subsidy would be based upon that tier. So you could artificially manipulate whether you get a greater subsidy by making an extra $1 or so. By the way, with Obamacare now, if I decided myself and my business to have an adjusted gross income of 0 or negative, I would be entitled to Obamacare, which is absurd. So Obamacare has a lot of mistakes, problems, and issues. Companies are trying to figure out a way to navigate around the mandate by having only 49 full-time workers as opposed to 50. So I find, being in business 39 years, that companies find ways to manipulate around laws, you might say. And I don't think that this is good. I don't think the health delivery system is going to get any better by Obamacare. And frankly, I think that we deal too much with premium as opposed to access to proper medical care. We have to make sure that we maintain the best medical care in the world. So let's not forget about medical care and focus only on premium or subsidizing some people who can't afford it. Let's make sure job one is access to the best medical care in the world.
Mr. Isaac, do you have a follow-up on that?
Yes, please, just real quickly.
Both candidates, yes.
Real quickly, Mark, is your insurance situation better now than it was before Obamacare?
Well, you know, it's funny that you'd ask that, because I'll give you a real-life example. I was forced to go from my group plan to an individual plan with Anthem Blue Cross Blue Shield. My insurance premium for a family, and I have a large family, I have seven people in the family, 5 kids, was $2,300 per month, with a very small deductible at the time. I was forced to go into an insurance product where the insurance premium is $1,650 per month, but the total of the copays and the deductibles are $6,000 a year. So you can do quick math and determine that from a cost standpoint, it's actually costing us more. The coverage is essentially the same, but it's actually costing us more because of compliance with Obamacare products.
Ms. Esty, would you have a comment on that, or was it just too personal a question?
No, I don't participate in the government subsidized health care. I get it through my spouse, and it is largely the same at Yale as it was before.
Okay, I would like to take another question that comes from the voters, and then we'll go back to our panel, if I may. This one is slightly long, and it goes to Mr. Greenberg first. Given the fact that income inequality has deepened in our country since 2008, would you support increasing the maximum taxable earnings for Social Security from $117,000 to capture more resources for Social Security Trust Fund from more affluent Americans?
No. I mean, look, increasing the ceiling from what is presently higher is just a tax increase on people who are already paying too much taxes. I have been very vocal, very determined, and now I'll make clear to this audience and elsewhere that I am in favor of increasing the retirement age from 67 to 70. I've said that before. I don't hide from that position. When Social Security was created, the average lifespan for a man was 65. The exact age that you would be collecting Social Security. Essentially, it was a plan for the widow. Now, we live a lot longer. We're productive a lot longer. We work a lot longer. Why is it wrong to raise the retirement age from 67 to 70 and ask younger people only, to work a little bit longer to ensure that they have a system when they retire? To ensure that the system will remain solvent. You could go right now on the Social Security website, and they'll tell you on page 1 that in approximately 15 years, there will only be 73% of the money necessary in order to pay benefits. Well, that basically is saying that the system will be insolvent. I've called for this debate. I want to have a discussion about how we save Social Security, not only for those people who are 52 or older, for which there will be no change in benefits, but also for the younger people who I think will contribute a few extra weeks a year to make sure that the system works for them and for their children. Let's have a debate about it. Let's not hide. Let's not put our heads in the sand. Let's not kick it down the road. Let's talk about it. Let's get in a room. But unfortunately, professional politicians who care most about their own jobs and most about their own re-election are thinking about their re-election next and trying to avoid a hard discussion about the issue. I'm willing to have that hard discussion on the issue. I'm willing to take a vote on that and votes on other issues which might ensure that I do not get re-elected. I'm willing to do the right thing for the future of America and to make sure that Social Security is there for young Americans for the future.
Thank you. Ms. Esty.
I think it's worth looking at raising the cap. And I am not a supporter of the proposal to increase the retirement age. And I'll tell you why. It's easy if you're a professional and you're very wealthy like Mark Greenberg to keep working for a long time. It's easy if you make your living doing mental work. But if you are a physical labor, if you work in a nursing home making minimum wage, it's just not reasonable to think you're going to be able to do your job. Somebody who works on your construction sites, I'll bet you probably don't have 69-year-olds driving backhoes and hammering nails into 2x4s. So we have to be realistic. Many people are living longer, but not everybody is able to work longer. And we need a fair system. We need a system that recognizes the dignity of work for all Americans. And frankly, 51-year-olds, a lot of 51-year-olds I know feel like they're pretty close to retirement age. And if you change the goalposts on them now and tell them they're going to have to work a couple of years longer before they can collect Social Security, they're not worth $100, $200 million. They won't be able to figure out how to make up that difference. So again, I think we should be looking at the proposals that would increase the cap, which would extend the lifespan of the Social Security Trust Fund for 75 years. That's some of the proposals. I think that ought to be top of the list of what we look at, rather than changing the goalposts on folks. And it's differentially going to hit those who have had the hardest luck in this life.
Mr. Greenberg, any comment on that?
Well, yes, I'm against a tax increase, and raising the rate again. The level would be a tax increase. People in this state are tired of taxes being so high. People in this state are tired about this being the most expensive state nearly to live in. People in this state are tired. The older people are tired to being forced to move to North Carolina, South Carolina, or Florida because they simply can't afford to be in this state. People are tired of having their children not come back to their home. So I'm dead set against an increase in the level of taxation. Partial or getting benefits at a younger age than the full retirement age is still possible. Right now you can get partial retirement at a younger age. We keep that in place. I think we have to have a debate about it. I'm happy to have that debate. I'm happy to sit down and even think about compromise if it meant preserving this system for the future and for the young people. Now, a lot of young people right now, and I speak to them all the time, don't even think that Social Security is going to be around for them. So they start planning on their own retirement. They start putting money away on their own because they have no confidence whatsoever that folks in Congress right now are going to get this done.
All right, anything more, or shall we move on? All right, let's go back to our panel. Ms. Morrow, you're next, and the question is for Ms. Esty.
What is the biggest hurdle to economic recovery in this district, and how will you tackle it?
I think we need to be making a major investment in two things. One is education, the other is transportation and infrastructure. I think those are the two keys for our district. Those are our strengths, and those would unleash the power of what we need to do. And that really is focused around American manufacturing. I think that really is our strength, as well as biotech and biomed. That's why I've been focusing on science, technology, engineering, math. That's why I've been focusing on improving our transportation system so it's easier for businesses and people to move themselves around the district. And these are the core issues I hear from people all the time: transportation, education, and jobs. And they can all be linked through American manufacturing, through better efforts on skill sets for all of our children. And those are going to reap the kind of short and long-term benefits. One of the advantages of investing in infrastructure, and Larry Summers just wrote a piece in, I think it was the Financial Times in the last couple of days, again emphasizing the greatest multiplier effect you get from investing is to invest in infrastructure. It creates jobs right now, and it creates a pathway to a better functioning economy in the future. That's why it's so important we do it. And it's unfortunate that it's been seen as a jobs-only short-term project, because it's really not. It's about building on the strength of this country.
Mr. Greenberg, your views.
Yes, as I said before, we went from first to worst in 24 years or so, and it's going to take us some years to get back. It's not an overnight fix, unfortunately. We have very, very bad policies in Hartford that would be driving this economic engine, or trying to drive the economic engine. It's always been said that this state is not friendly to business. I think we have to ensure that our small businesses become the engine of growth. The ad mills of the world, as I described before, the factory in New Britain that got that great contract and wants to hire more people. We have a skill there. Let's deal with education at vocational level to get some of these young people to realize that these are good jobs. They're not factories the way we used to think about them. They're manufacturing plants, and this is where our skill set is. So we have to start this road back to prosperity. We've gotten in a very bad way since 2008 in this district and the state in general. We've been in a recession, depression, and we're struggling to get out of it. So we have to try to energize the small companies to get back on track and to hire people. Now, to give you another example, for instance, of how in this district, and specifically Litchfield, Connecticut, in a property that I own, it's taken 3 years to convert a 65,000 square foot shopping center to a 62,000 square foot shopping center with a brand new Stop and Shop in it. 3 years. And in that 3 years, the town of Litchfield has lost $180,000 in taxes, and young people and other people have not been able to work in the increase in jobs that brand new Stop and Shop would then allow. And this is because of wetlands regulations. This is because of other regulations. This is because the court system has allowed a few people to stall this process. So we have to try to streamline the laws and the court system in this state to allow for proper development and quicker development to allow us to be able to have more jobs and to grow again.
Is there another comment on?
Yes, if I may. I'm going to have to say something here. I thought this was a debate for the 5th Congressional District. It's kind of sounding like a governor's debate. You know, I'm hearing about taxes in the state and how bad we are in the state, about Common Core, about regulations, inland wetlands, about the state court system. But what we're talking about here, Mark, is not that. It's about what the future is of the voice for the people in the 5th District of Connecticut in Washington to be their representative on national issues and on national laws. And I welcome you. Seems like there's room for more people in that gubernatorial debate going on, and I would urge you to do that if you think you can do a better job here in Connecticut with the laws in Connecticut, with the tax climate, with the education system. But what we're talking about is the national issues and the national policies. So again, I think it's important to remember that you're not running against Dan Malloy, you're running against me.
Okay. Mr. Greenberg, do you wish to add anything to this? Okay.
Well,
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you. It's almost time for applause. Any comment?
I'm trying to be responsive to the question that was asked to me. I can't solve all the issues that your Democratic administration and Congress and Harry Reid, who's holding 435 bills on his desk, so I'm trying to solve.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, Ms. Lee, next question, and it goes to Mr. Greenberg.
I'm going to take the lead of Jill on the questions about the economy, but take a perspective that I think it reflects what's going on in the 5th District. Recently, there's been a group of non-for-profits and female leaders are going to look into what they can do to help struggling middle-class families in our area. There's been a big shift in the past 3 years to the local area non-for-profits. When they look at the profiles of the families that they're helping, the income is not decreasing, it's actually going up, but they're seeing that the cost of living in Connecticut is so high that a family that before found themselves describing as middle class are actually finding themselves actually be closer now to the poverty line than before. So on a national level, what kind of policies will you support, have you supported to help struggling middle class working families in our state, in our area?
Okay, Mr. Greenberg.
Well, yeah, what we need most in this state and the country, Congresswoman, is jobs. Jobs, jobs, jobs. We have to get people working again. We have a lot of people who are out of work. 700,000 people who have given up looking for jobs. 7 million people who are unemployed. A 5.9% unemployment rate is too high still, in my opinion. We have to change the tax code. We have to decrease marginal rates. We have to get rid of a lot of loopholes. We have to bring more people into the system, engage more people. We have to make it easier for folks to find jobs, earn a living, and do things on their own, frankly. That relates to the state and the federal government as well. So we have to deal with that. In 2008, we had a terrible recession, depression. We still have it in this state. We haven't crawled out of that. There are other states that have. North Dakota, South Dakota, Eastern Pennsylvania. Other states have done very, very well. We haven't. We're actually losing population in this state. We're losing population because 49% of the people want to leave. If these people didn't have mortgages in excess of the value of their house, they could sell their house and actually leave. If these people didn't have fathers or mothers who were perhaps sick that they couldn't leave, they would leave. If these people were not stuck by bricks and mortar in their business to this state, they would leave. To me, that's a terrible indictment on this state. I would love this state to be great again. I came to this state because I believe this state was great again. We have the best weather, 4 beautiful seasons. We're between Boston and New York, but something has gone wrong in this state. We have to fix this state. We have to do it by fixing the economy of the United States. We have to do it also at the local level by having different leadership at the local level and in Hartford.
Okay, Ms. Esty.
Well, as to the question of what federal proposals and efforts I'd undertake to address that very real question, I mean, the truth is the American worker is more productive than he and she has ever been. But for the last 10 years, most families have seen their wages basically flat. People are working harder than ever and not feeling better, not doing better. So there are a number of specific things that I'm supportive of that I think will help address that. One is to raise the federal minimum wage. Now, one of the reasons we need to do that is because, we're a high-cost state. We are, and the coastal states are. And we've done the right thing in our state to raise our minimum wage because no one, I don't think, should be working full-time and raising their family in poverty. People who are working full-time don't want to have to get nutrition support. They want to be able to pay all their bills. But if we don't pay people enough to do that, we aren't honoring our commitment as Americans to make work pay. And we need to get back to that fundamental principle that people should have work pay for the work that they do. I'm a supporter of the pay equity bills. Too many women are still paid less than their male counterparts. This needs to be changed. We need to deal with housing. It is a big issue. I know particularly in Danbury, it's a big issue because I've talked with folks in Danbury, business owners, people now living in Waterbury and community to Danbury. We have housing affordability issues we need to work on. And all of these things are important. And I was actually a little curious that Mark said that the answer to this was actually lowering income tax at the higher end and increasing it. I mean, that's bringing more people in the system, is raising it on middle class folks. That's the answer to how we get to more job growth. I disagree. I don't think that's right. I do think we need comprehensive tax reform, make no mistake about it. But I don't think that should be done on the backs of middle class families who are trying to figure out how to pay their bills, how to pay for tuition for their kids in school, and how to take care of grandma and grandpa who might be in a nursing home. I don't think that's the right values.
Mr. Greenberg, do you wish to say anything to that?
Yes, okay. Congresswoman Esty and I do agree that we should have equal pay for women for equal jobs. As a matter of fact, in a way, I would always believe that women in some of my businesses have done better jobs than men. Sorry, guys. It's just the way it is. Cynthia, for instance, in my office in New York, she's been working for me for 35 years. She's my controller. Betty's been in charge of the secretarial staff 32 years. And Lisa is running the Simon Foundation, which my wife Linda and I created, where we save dogs and cats, in Bloomfield, Connecticut. You might have heard my barking commercial. It was filmed there. So I believe in equal pay for women. I really do. It's only right.
All right. Well, we've come to the end. Sorry, Mr. Reiser, you won't get to ask your question. It is now time for closing statements. Timers, if you would reset your watches. By pre-arrangement, Mr. Greenberg, you go first, and you have 2 minutes.
Yeah, thank you very much.
And the timers will indicate when you have 30 seconds left, and then a red car for stop.
Okay, thank you very much. I would like to thank, again, everybody here for coming and being such a good audience. This is a critical election, in my opinion. I've been running for 5 years. This is my 3rd time running. I like to say that when I first ran in 2010, I had 3 children. When I ran in 2012, I had 4. 2014, I have 5. And my wife, Linda, whom I want to thank, by the way, for putting up with me for these 5 years, said to me, Mark, you better win this time. So I promised her that if I didn't win, that I'm not running again, and I made that very public. There's nothing more important for me to do than run for the greatness of this country, to run for my 5 children and for their friends. I'm in a position, lucky enough to be in the position, to be a product of the American dream, and I make no mistake about that. I make no apologies for that. But I worked hard. And along the way, I had my failures. So I'm successful now, but I had failures on the way. If I do nothing to make this country great again, then I'm part of the problem and not part of the solution. And in my life, my father and mother have taught me, be part of the solution. Do something. Become engaged. And that's why I'm here, struggling to make this country great again. I'm in it to make this country great again. I'm in it for the American exceptionalism that we talked about 100 years ago. This is a country under God better than any that's ever existed. And our founders knew how to put together a constitution indicating our greatness, showing our greatness. They knew about the other systems that didn't work. I'm in it to fight for you, not for me. I'm in it for all the right reasons, and I ask you for your vote.
Thank you very much. Ms. Esty, let's hold the applause till both candidates have spoken, and please go forward afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you. As a third-generation League member, a special thank you to the League of Women Voters, to our panelists, to the News Times, but most importantly, to you. To the great Americans over here who understand that the greatest threat to our democracy is not vigorous disagreement. We've seen some of that tonight. The greatest threat is disengagement. So I want to thank you for your engagement, for your commitment to the sometimes hard and difficult work of struggling through, of working with each other, of arguing, of trying to find common ground, because that is what America's democracy is all about. I've told you I got started doing this because my daughter sort of called me to account to be responsible, to be a problem solver in my own community. And I take that practical problem solving to Washington, mindful that decisions that I make there are going to affect state officials, are going to affect local officials, are going to affect the teachers in our schools, the nonprofits in our communities, the business community. And that kind of accountability is absolutely necessary to do this job well. I'm running proudly on my record because I found that despite how broken it is in Washington, there are people of goodwill on both sides of the aisle, and I've been finding those people, and that's why I've been able to get a bill passed on clean energy, why I've been able to get a bill with the Texan Republican Lamar Smith on STEM education, because I can assure you there are good people all over the country who are trying to do the right thing. I'm proud to represent you. We've got a lot of good work to do. Proud to be able to have helped Tom Campbell, who's here in the crowd, and veterans all across this district. That's an important part of the job as well. So I want to thank you for your engagement, for your involvement. I thank you for the honor of representing you for the last 2 years, and I ask for your support and your vote on November 4th. Thank you very much.
And now for that round of applause. Before you all leave, let me remind you, November 4th is Election Day. Let me remind you, there is a ballot question, a constitutional amendment. We've left some information about it for you. Do exercise your right to vote, and thank you all.
It is the 4th.